For more on the planned protest, a former Labour leader, Issa Aremu, joins me on the news. Thank you for joining us on TVC News at 10. Well, the NLC has stuck to its guns that it's going ahead with a 2-day nationwide protest. What's your reaction to that? Ms. Aremu, I'm asking if you can hear me.
Yes, I'm hearing you, although you could talk more louder.
All right. The NLC says it is going ahead with its 2-day nationwide protest. That will be from Tuesday to Wednesday. What's your view of that action?
Well, I think you know that we're in a democracy. And, I mean, any country, you know that organized labor cannot engage in protests or demonstration. You know that there's no democracy there. I mean, it's a democratic country. But labor is also aware that after the protests, you know, at the end of the day, all you need is the result. And happily, the same organized labor represented by NLC and TUC are engaging in very robust negotiation with the federal government led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I've been in the labor movement for quite some time. You know very well my profile. That 15-point agreement reached on October 2nd last year was one of the most far-reaching agreements ever reached between federal government and the labor movement. The first one dealt with presidential wage awards. Initially 25,000, it was increased to 35,000. Then there was also a commitment to inaugurate the tripartite minimum wage committee. He also had commitment of 100 billion naira for CNG buses for mass transportation. He also had commitment that the two parties will have a joint visitation panel to look at the state of the refinery. I fully agree with the Honorable Minister of State for Labor and Productivity, Honorable Nkiruka Oyedeocha, that substantially these agreements have been implemented largely. As I'm talking to you, I'm also a federal employee. I bear witness that up to January, the 35,000 naira, you know, had been paid to all the federal employees. You know, I mean, 4 months effectively. I also know that the minimum wage committee has been inaugurated. You know, in fact, we've had second meetings now. And for me, that's the most important committee in recent time. It has also been enlarged at the 37-member committee, headed by the former head of service, you know, Bukar Aji, you know, and 6 governors are represented on that committee, you know, very unprecedented. We have each governor from each geographical zone. I think organized labor should concentrate energies, you know, and mind to make sure that we quickly engage employers of labor who are also represented in this committee, NECA, to make sure that we have improvements in the new minimum wage. And don't also forget, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is also committed not just to minimum wage. He said so during the campaign, which he engaged with labor very well. After the campaign, he also says he's made this speech. He was also committed. He has said he's committed to living wage. So you can't have a better partner in government than the president that organized labor should engage in. So if you ask me on a more serious note, and they're all my comrades, I respect the view of the NLC to exercise the rights. I also respect the view of TUC as much as possible, but two of them should close around so that we consolidate energy to get the best deal as much as possible through negotiation with this government. And you know that part of this 15-point agreement, in fact, number 13 of that agreement, also says that all the parties, for as long as this agreement is being on, will abide by the dictates of negotiation, which is about social dialogue. So even protest is not within the context of that agreement. So all I want to say is that I think the two parties have done very well, and they should undermine this through unnecessary, avoidable or preventable, you know, distractions. You know, and I think that is of essence.
I hear you, Mr. Aremu.
That we should return to negotiating table as much as possible.
Yes, let's talk about the decision of TUC not to be part of the protest and their suggestion for importation of food and waivers for importers of raw materials for manufacturing goods. How effective would this be in managing the situation?
First, I think it's good to appreciate the position of TUC that the way out of the crisis is that we should keep on engaging, and that I could also see that the president has constituted the advisory committee. In fact, what I will suggest Labour to do is to make sure to impress the federal government, so that they are also part of that advisory committee. We can't leave the advisory committee on the economy only to people in business, as I can see the constitution so far. Labour must be represented there so that they carry their opinions to that level. So, I mean, that's at the level of representation. But I listen to their views, but if you also ask me, and I think TUC, we agree as much as possible, that Labour has a number of charter of demands, and I think our position is that we should be able to grow as much as possible what we consume in this country. I think we should avoid panicking measures. I don't think the crisis is shortage as such. The crisis we have in our hand is affordability, and the only way Nigerians can pay for available goods is to pay them very well, improve purchasing power. For the workers, increase their pay, make sure you pay as and when due, from a living wage, move to real sustainable wage. That would be very necessary. And there's already conditional transfer, which is taking place. I had about 3.5 million households have now benefited from 25,000 naira, which has been given. I think the best way is to increase the purchasing power, put the money in the hands of Nigerians, and at the same time have microeconomic stability. We need to have control over this footloose devaluation of currency. It's unacceptable.
All right.
I think CBN also make sure to be on duty. We are looking for the new monetary policy committee decision. Meeting coming up. Targeting inflation is fine, but you have to target employment, target purchasing power of the working people, and you can't do so with this footloose devaluation of the currency. It's unacceptable because that undermines the purchasing power of the working people. Again, Labour will do better to return to negotiation table. You can't do so on the sidelines, on the street. You have to be on the table where the discussion is taking place. So my suggestion would be that I think federal government should also make sure to call Labour on board to be part of the new economic advisory committee so that they can put all their ideas to be in place. Don't forget that Labour
I'm afraid,
on the need for local production. Refineries must come on board on time, and we can reduce this, monstrous amount of money we are spending on importation of petroleum products, which is also putting pressure on the naira.
I hear you, and I'm afraid that's just the much time would permit us
out is to return to
take. Yes, that's the much time will permit us to take. Former Labour leader Issa Aremu, thank you so much for talking to us on TVC News at 10. And Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima says the idea behind Light Up Nigeria initiative is a calculated effort of government to stabilize power supply to industrial clusters and living homes in the country. He made this public at the second launch of Light Up Nigeria initiative for Southeast, held in Enugu. Bamidele Ajayi has more. Nigeria.